Okay, welcome to the BNSF Montana Division. I'm located in Windham, Connecticut. As I just said, I do model the BNSF in Montana. The era is modern era, up to date. There's some proto-freelancing involved because I have kept the MRL, which was absorbed by the BNSF recently. So I do backdate a little bit in that way. It is an HO scale. The layout size is 20 by 26. I started the layout, there's several different iterations of the layout. I started the layout back in 2005, the way you see it today, double deck. Prior to that, it was single deck. So there's been 3 different layouts basically in this room. I do use DCC, NCE wireless system. I also have Wi-Fi capability. The layout was basically designed for operations. I'm a big operations kind of guy. I do like scenery and, you know, trying to capture the look of the area. So if you know anything in Montana or some of these locations, I try to make it so you would see a scene and it would immediately remind you of an area in Montana that I model. Okay, I'd like to bring you guys on a tour of the layout. We can start on the east end up in Shelby and go all the way around to the west end of the layout in Spokane, Washington. So this is Shelby, Montana. The Shelby station is very similar to what is in place. That's a Craftsman kit that I built for the Shelby station. Shelby is a staging yard. The staging yard is open staging, so that's why it's completely visible, because at one time they did crew changes in Shelby, Montana. So there were a lot of trains in and out of Shelby that were sitting there waiting for crews. So I tried to capture that same thing and not have it as hidden staging. So it's prototypical to have all the trains basically sitting in the yard. As we continue west, we come into the town of Cutbank. And like as I said before, a lot of this is proto-freelanced. A lot of these industries are not there any longer in these areas. I tried to capture the feel of the industries that could have been there, so I researched a lot on names to try to keep it prototypical. So a lot of these names were actual industries at one point somewhere in Montana or the different states that I do model. So I tried to maintain that image as we go through. So one of the first industries is Montana Ag Products. They're a fertilizer producer for farming. And then we come down to All Energy, which is a frac sand distributor for some of the fracking that goes on further east up into the Dakotas and stuff, but that would be a distributor for fracking sand. And then there's another industry, Four Corners Supply, which supplies oil field pipe and things to the oil industry, which is pretty big out there. As you come around the corner, that is Two Medicine Trestle, which is a pretty iconic spot. A lot of photography there, looking up into Glacier National Park in the backdrop. Continuing west, we're going to come into the town of East Glacier. So East Glacier has a station, the Great Northern. This was what the Great Northern line at one time. And Great Northern did a lot of their stations in that log type of look, that rustic look. And then in East Glacier, I had 2 industries. I have Northwestern Energy, which is their local utility out in Montana. So they receive poles and different, electrical type of equipment. And also Feral Gas, which is a propane distributor. As you continue down a little further, there's a trestle, an underpass under the layout, under the railroad, the double main. That is actually realistic. That's a photo of the Blackfeet painted that trestle to that, I call it a trestle, but it's a bridge. they painted the face of that, and that's a photo that I actually just laminated to the face of some foam core and made it look like the road. And I tried to prototypically, you know, as accurately as I could capture that scene. We continue around. There's an abandoned old snow shed 4C, which burned at one time, so the walls are still there, but the snow shed is gone. Route 2 just cuts into here a little bit. This is Route 2, which follows basically the whole northern tier of Montana. So that's the road anybody would travel if you want to travel along the BNSF in northern Montana. Route 2 basically parallels it the whole way across Montana. We continue around, and the first full snow shed is at the corner here. This is snow shed 12. I did scratch build this and tried to capture that look of basically the gore and everything. When they do get snow slides, it really tears up all the trees and everything else. So I tried to capture that back onto the backdrop and then also down onto the surface of the snow shed. As we continue around, we come into Essex, which is a pretty popular spot. Most people that go out towards Glacier Park and everything know Essex. They know the Isaac Walton Inn. BNSF has a small yard there. It's basically a maintenance yard. They had helpers there, manned helpers there. It's back and forth whether they still do that. They also have a small Amtrak platform, which is, they van the people. They come in and they get off of Amtrak, and then they van them up to by van up to the Isaac Walton Inn. So I tried to capture that platform and how that comes into Essex. Essex still does have a water tower from the steam days, from the Great Northern days, and that's in the background, basically in the yard there at Essex. So I tried to capture the rough look of it. A lot of snow equipment in Essex, which is realistic. They still do a lot of staging of snow equipment, fire trains in the fire season and so forth. Continue around the layout here, and we come to which is a pretty fictitious town, if I want to say it. Continuing west, this is the town of Nyack. There's really nothing in Nyack realistically, you know, but I did try to do something that I thought could have been there. Cornell Cement Corporation is a cement distributor in Montana, so I made a Nyack plant in Nyack, and then there's also a Montana Department of Transportation snow shed, salt and sand shed for winter work that's in Nyack. We continue around, and people look at the tunnels and they say, why would they have such short tunnels, and they didn't daylight them. There are numerous tunnels on the Flathead River. They come out of one small tunnel and go into another small tunnel. There's multiple tunnels. So I tried to capture that look a little bit of the multiple tunnels. So 3.7 in Tunnel 4, coming around the corner, and the Flathead River basically follows the main line. We continue around into Belton, which is West Glacier, but it's referred to by the railroad as Belton. Eventually there will be some type of basically a front of a station with an open back where I'll be able to see the interior of the station, because I don't have a lot of room on the shelf here, but there is a platform temporarily there in place right now. We continue into Coram, which is a large bridge that goes over the Flathead River, the middle fork of the Flathead River. And Coram's another spot where there's a lot of photography. People take a lot of pictures of this particular bridge at Coram. It was sort of a fun project. I molded the piers using hydrocal, made a mold for myself to try to match what's actually there and try to capture the look once again. You know, it's just trying to get as close as you can to getting that look. Continuing, we're going to start coming into the town of Columbia Falls, double track main. So BNSF refers to their mains as the main line and then a secondary main. They don't call it sidings or passing sidings or anything. They refer to it as a secondary main. So most of the towns have a main line through, of course, and then a secondary main, and they use that for switching and getting off of the main line to do whatever work they had to do. In Columbia Falls, there are numerous industries still in place. Some of them have changed, you know, the look and who they are. But there's several lumber industries in Columbia Falls. Plum Creek was one of the big ones. So this first scene here is Plum Creek Lumber. They've since been absorbed by Weyerhaeuser, and I believe Weyerhaeuser actually closed them. I don't think they're in business anymore. But they did a lot of dimensional lumber and a lot of medium density fiberboard, MDF. So they had an MDF mill there and a regular dimensional lumber mill. And there was also another company that did plywood, which unfortunately I wasn't able to actually determine the actual name of them. So I called it CNC Plywood. So there are two industries basically back to back, the CNC Plywood and then the Plum Creek industry. Then you basically exit the room, you go into a helix, and you come back into the room. You're continuing in that westbound direction, and you come into the town of Whitefish. Whitefish is really a more of a tourist town. They do have a substantial yard there, very little industry in Whitefish. I believe there's a lumber mill, there's a propane dealer, there's a couple of things prototypically in Whitefish. I expanded on that. Basically with several different industries. I have a distributing company that distributes basically food products and things for markets and so forth. So they would take in a lot of the produce that's made further west and brought into Montana and then distributed from there. I have a metal industry, metal works, and a chemical company, small chemical company, and also a milling company that does custom millwork, moldings and so forth. Out of Whitefish Yard, there are two mainline trains that run west out of Whitefish. You have a local train, the East Glacier Local, which runs basically all the way up into East Glacier. That's the termination point, and it works all the industries between Whitefish and there. So there's a second local train that works out of Whitefish. That's the local to Shelby. That train would work everything from East Glacier into Shelby, all the different industries, and then it would also work Shelby Yard. Okay, so now we're on the lower level, and we are continuing westbound. So you come through Whitefish Yard, which is a pretty busy yard. A lot of work goes on there, and we're coming to Flathead Tunnel, and I just I did a little bit of roughing just to get an idea of what would fit. The tunnel portals were made by a friend. He did them on a 3D printer for me. And so I'm just trying to get a feel of how this is all going to come together to scene. So I basically use some foam core just to get an idea of how the tunnel portals and there's blowers in Flathead Tunnel to blow the fumes out of the tunnel. So the blowers are attached basically to the face of the portal area. There's a blower building, and I'm trying to get that sort of ironed out. So that's where I am with that right here. So you continue out, you come to the south portal of Flathead Tunnel, and they refer to it as the north portal and the south portal, even though the track is east and west. I don't know why they did that, but that's what they refer to it. The south portal is pretty basic, a regular tunnel portal. What's sort of unique was there was a road, a Forest Service road that ran over the top of that portal. Continuing around, we come to the Kootenai River. The Kootenai basically follows the main line, and once again there's several little tunnels and stuff. I did model one tunnel on the Kootenai River. So that continues around, and then we come to the town of Libby. Libby does have some industry actually in place today, but I made a Coors manufacturing. Basically, they receive hops and barley and different things for making beer. It's just basically a distribution point for them to receive those products and then ship them down to Golden, Colorado to their plant. But it's just a receiving area for them. So eventually there'll be a Coors hoppers and so forth at Libby. Next area we come to is Sandpoint, Idaho. Sandpoint is basically, once again, a tourist area, very similar to Whitefish, very much into fishing on the Lake Oreille. But I wanted some type of ethanol. Ethanol, when I got into this layout, was a big thing, and I like the industry. So eventually there'll be an ethanol plant here. They basically receive tanks, they receive the grains to make the ethanol, and then they produce the finished product. And basically one of the byproducts of ethanol production is dried distillers grains. So those are shipped out, and those are basically used as animal feed. So the different tracks will be related to the product coming in. The ethanol track would be in the front, and then the grain or the corn coming in to make the ethanol would be on another track, and then the DDGs going out, dried distillers grains going out, would be on the other track. It doesn't seem like much, but when you get in here switching it, it's pretty involved. It takes quite a while, so it's been a fun industry. And Sandpoint also has a small station for Amtrak. And we continue. One of the scenes that I really want to reproduce is Lake Oreille. There's an area where the BNSF goes over Lake Oreille. They actually just put a second overpass, a second bridge in that area. I just modeled the single bridge for now, It's part of the area they call the funnel, and the funnel is because everything funneled down to this one choke point of this bridge. So they've actually, building that second bridge has eliminated that choke point. So eventually that seam will come together. And we continue west into the town of Hauser. Hauser is like a subdivision almost of Spokane. It's not too far out of Spokane, so it's just that urban sprawl of Spokane is continued out. In Hauser I have a small lumber company, and then I have an interchange track with the Spokane International. So the Spokane International comes in and they service their interchange track, and then the BNSF interchanges with them cars in Hauser. Continuing around, we come into the town of Trentwood. So Trentwood has a couple of different things. I've tried to reproduce some of the fruit things, the fruit industry that starts basically in western Montana, or eastern Washington, I should say. So you get a lot of different apples and different products. So there's a couple of different fruit industries, apple cart fruits, and Washington State growers. And then I have a plastic pellet plant. They receive plastic pellets, and there is actually a large Kaiser aluminum plant in Trentwood. So Kaiser aluminum is in the background. That'll eventually be built out with small buildings and so forth, going up against that backdrop photo to capture Kaiser aluminum's plant in Trentwood. There's also a grain supplier in Trentwood. ADM Grain has a grain facility in Trentwood that they load cars from local farms and ship it west for export. And then we come into the Spokane yard. It's the largest yard on the layout. Spokane basically has 7 different jobs that come out of it. Everything from Amtrak, which would come out of the station and go up to Shelby. That's the Empire Builder. And then there's 6 locals that operate out of Spokane. The Trentwood local, which services Trentwood, the Hauser local. The MRL does an interchange. They basically come out of Sandpoint, out of staging at Sandpoint, and they come into the town and basically interchange a train. There's the local that goes to Columbia Falls, a local that goes to Whitefish and works Whitefish Industries, a manifest that goes to Whitefish that interchanges cars for the trains that Whitefish builds. The 2 locals that Whitefish builds, those are the cars that supply those trains. And there's going to be a small engine facility, basically a fueling facility and whatnot, in Spokane. In the rear of Spokane, there's 12 staging tracks that are hidden, and those are representing the western part of the layout, basically the west coast of the United States. Okay, I hope you enjoyed your visit to the BNSF Montana Division, my rendition of it in Connecticut. I will be on the tours and on the operating sessions for the Northeast Region Convention coming up in Southbridge, and I hope you enjoyed the tour, and I hope to see you again this fall for the convention. Thanks.